All right, guys, here we are. We're going to go ahead and start our testing for today. What we're going to show you today is a charging valve. Okay, there's a charging valve. So a lot of people don't want to remove their valve core. And so removing the valve core is fantastic because you get full flow. It's a whole full 1/4 inch. Okay, but if you have the valve core still in there, it is more safe, but man, it's a restriction. And we're about to show you the restriction based on the little pumps we're going to use in today's test. But the point is, with this charging tool, you're able to push the valve core in as best as possible. So in other words, if you try using a regular hose and stick it on there with a depressor on it and push in the valve core, you got to adjust it yourself. They don't come pre-adjusted. You adjust them and then you push it on. You're hoping it makes good connection to the valve core and it pushes it all the way in. Okay, well this thing here really pushes it in. You can tell it goes all the way up and touches. So it is done. Okay, so you're getting as good as you can possibly do with the valve core in it. So I want to show you that because some people do not want to remove the valve core, and I can understand that. I don't have no problem with removing the valve core, but I've done it a number of times. People who haven't, they're just nervous, they're going to do one and done. Maybe this is the way to do it, and it just takes a lot longer to vacuum. Okay, but we're going to walk through that. So anyway, I'm going to show you the charging valve right now. Let's do it. Okay, here's the system. You're still going to use a valve core removal tool. This one's a Navac. You can use on these ones here. Sometimes they have a 5/16 thread here, and sometimes they have a 1/4 inch. This is a 1/4 inch. The Navac has the 5/16 adapter if you were going to use that for that. But anyway, this is if you're going to use Apion, they don't have the adapter. So this is a 5/16 here, and this is a 1/4 inch one here. So you'd be using the 1/4 inch one here if you were going to use this system, okay? Because you still want to put your micron gauge on it or your testo pressure gauge too. So if you want to put your nitrogen in here, and you got your hose here, it could go to a nitrogen bottle or it could go to a vacuum pump, which we have it set up for now. I already done our nitrogen. I already did our testing for our nitrogen. So the point is, this could either be a testo gauge right here, a pressure gauge, or it could be a micron gauge. So right now, that's why you want to have the valve core removal tool. So it allows you to have more tools on this during your test. Okay. Now, this system here this is a valve core depressor. That's what this is. Okay. So your valve core is still in there, and normally we just remove it. We take the valve core removal tool and put it right there, remove the valve core, and it's done. And we got full flow. That's a full 1/4 inch tube right here. But if you don't want to do that, then this is the second best thing, okay, I've come up with so far. And so what this tool does is called a charging valve, and I'll give you a link for it. There's different sizes, so I want you to get the right one. This has got to be 5/16 for R, so it's called R410A, and this is R22 or R12, and that's a 1/4 inch, okay? So the 5/16 and a 1/4 inch. But anyway, so right now the valve core is not is out. It's normal, okay. And I want to depress it so I can start my vacuum, okay. Because right now, if I started the vacuum, it would just come up and it would stop at the valve core, okay. Because nothing can get through the valve core. It's just like an inner tube with a valve core in it. When you got an inner tube on your tire and the valve core is in there, unless you depress it and let the air out, it stays and holds the air. Well, same principle. So it's holding whatever's inside this line, and so I got to depress it. Okay, so that's what this does. You simply just push it in, and when you push it in, you can feel it make the connection to the valve core. Then you just keep pushing, and as soon as you feel it stop, you just go until it's right there. That's it. You don't have to go any further. You don't have to go tight or anything. It just pushed the valve core, and that's all this does. It pushes the valve core in and makes a perfect connection to the valve core. So it's as much room as you can possibly have. Again, it's not very much, but it's as much with a valve core in. I've already done this test, and you already saw the video with the valve core removed. Okay, now I'm doing one with the valve core pushed in as good as it can be. Literally as good as it can be, because this thing here pushes it all the way in, so it's completely as open as possible. Okay, so there's a big restriction, but there's as little restriction as you can have and retain the valve core. All right, here we go. We're ready to go. All right, we'll turn it on. We're not going to watch the whole thing. I just want to get it started. Once we get it started, we'll just leave it to its own devices, usually with the valve core still in it. But I want you to know what you're going to accomplish. If you don't have a micron gauge and you're just using the manifold gauge, but you do vacuum for an hour, then I'm showing you, if you have a nice dry tight system like mine, again, mine's just a system I installed just for testing, so that's all I use this one for. I have I don't know, 100 mini splits on the property, but this is the one I'm using for testing for this procedure, and I use it for a lot of procedures. So anything we have, if anybody questions anything, this is the system I use to prove or disprove something. So anyway, at this point we're at 16:15. It's been a couple minutes now, and I got a timer set, and I'm going to bring you back. Okay, it's been 11 minutes so far, and we're just going to keep going. So we'll see what a half hour gives us. If it's on a half hour, if it works fine on a micron gauge, then I'm going to call it, because if this is working fine, if it's working this fine, in other words, it doesn't seem to be having a problem with 377, and I happen to know my system is dry and tight, so it'll stay about there when I valve it off and then hold it for the decay test. So that's not an issue. So I'm probably going to call it at a half hour. It's been, like I said, about 14 minutes right now. I'm going to go ahead and let it go the other 15 minutes and see if it does anything. And if it doesn't, we're just going to call it macaroni and let it go. And that'll let you know that with this system, with this system here, you're able to get that micron gauge, okay, that micron value, okay, with this system. So, I mean, and that pump, so that's the point. It's this little girly 5th horsepower, 3.5. Okay, it went to 453 for our decay test, and so that's the system. We'll go ahead and lose it that way. And as you can see, all the parts are perfect. So, okay, I'm going to stop for a second and slow down and show you how to do the next procedures to get to release the refrigerant into the system. Okay, so we've already pressure tested and passed everything, and we pressure tested up to the highest limits of the system. So this one here, the high is 550, the low is 340. You want to test to 550. You're pretty close to it. Okay, and if yours is a 604 or whatever yours is, test to that. That way you'll know you won't have any issues. So you want to test to the highest pressure. So we already tested we did our pressure test, we passed. Now we just did our vacuuming, we passed. Okay, and we're still valved off here, and so it was holding over 450 microns, and so it passed the 500 minimum, maximum 500 microns. So it's also minimum, I guess. Anyway, so we passed our test, so that's done. And just so you know, we weren't able to get low, like, when I use, if you guys see my other videos, when I use my 1 horsepower 12 CFM dual stage monsters, it goes down to 67 microns. But these things, the little ones will work. You know what I mean? The little pumps will work. They just won't get very deep. And especially when you have a valve core in there. So anyway, but it is still under 500, so whatever, it still works for you. I wouldn't say it was the greatest thing, but sure as hell it meets the standards. All right, so moving on, I want to tell you how to move from here into being able to release the refrigerant from this system. We have the valve core depressor on here, but we're under vacuum. We're under valved off vacuum, so this thing's still under vacuum right now, and it was holding at 450 microns or whatever. So what I want to do is I'm going to show you how to release the refrigerant from here without messing with your vacuum, okay? And the way we're going to do that is, because before, remember when I taught you before how to do these things, it was 2 valve core removal tools. You had this one and you had another one that was protecting the micron gauge. So you would valve off the second one until the refrigerant wouldn't come up and get into the gauge and dirty it up. But what we do now with this system here, okay, we're not going to do that. What we're going to do is, even though we're valved off here and we got a good vacuum going, we're going to vacuum again, and watch what we do. By turning the vacuum back on again, by vacuuming it again, give it a second to vacuum the hose out just to make sure if any air or anything got in the middle of that. we're gonna be fine. So what we're gonna do is, while it's under vacuum, we're going to open it back up, and we're going to release the valve core. So while it's under vacuum, so you understand what I'm saying, is we had the vacuum turned off for our decay test, right? You had the vacuum turned off, the whole system was done. I could have actually just removed the hose, but I didn't want to because I knew I was going to do this later. So I had the hose still hooked up, but it was still full of air. Okay, that vacuum doesn't hold air. The valve does. By having it valved off, that's what held the vacuum in the system. All right. I hope I'm making myself clear here, not talking too fast. You may have to rewind this thing. I do talk too fast sometimes. But anyway, right now this had air in it, okay, because it doesn't hold vacuum when you turn off the vacuum. So right now it's fine. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to open up I'm going to open this thing up, the valve, and now it's under vacuum again. So right now it's pulling vacuum again, okay? It's back to pulling vacuum again. It was at 450 microns. If I had turned that on again, it would start going down a hair or whatever. So we're under vacuum again. While we're under vacuum, we're going to release this. So this is our valve core. It is over here, and it's depressed for all of our work we're doing. Okay, so now we're going to undepress it. Simply by unscrewing it, that let it go. So now the system is perfectly viable all by itself. This whole thing doesn't do anything. Everything doesn't do anything. It's completely done. So this right here, this can be yours. Hear that? That's from this. The valve core is perfectly fine. It's all up there and doing great. So we didn't release any refrigerant into the system, which would have messed up our micron gauge and nothing like that. So it worked out great. Good system. All right. And so that's the way we do it. Now at this point, since we just did that, we did that little trick there with the by turning the vacuum back on, we were able to release the valve core without screwing with it, without screwing with our vacuum. Okay. So now I'm not really going to release the refrigerant, but I'm showing you how to do it. I made the little one smaller than it needs to be to make it work. So, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So you would stick the proper one in there at this point and turn it on and open it up. Okay, you just simply open it up and keep going all the way until it opens all the way. And the same thing here. You take this thing, put it up there, and just go all the way until it opens all the way up. Okay, and that's it. Then you put your caps on. You know, you get your caps on, put a little nylog on there, and cap it off and cinch it up. So cinch up all of them, put a little nylog on the flare face, and cinch it up. And because the caps are part of the system, the caps aren't just decorative. The caps are part of the sealing system. All right, so put them on there, a little nylog on there, and seal them up. And it'll torque them a little bit. Don't have to use a torque gauge, but just a little crescent, tighten them up a little bit, and that helps the system be a seal. Okay, you don't just rely on the O-rings. You don't just rely on the Schrader valve. The whole thing is a system. All right, so put the cap on with a little nylog and tighten it up a little bit, and that'll become a nice sealed system. Now, remember, now that's all done now. Your refrigerant's in the system. You can go turn it on. Remember your last test. That's all done now. We all did all the tests we had to do, right? Our last test is to go inside the house and turn, after you turned your disconnect on, you plugged your disconnect in, you come in and turn this thing on, like right now in the summer, since we're in summer mode, we turn it on cool mode, turbofan, and 60 degrees. That'll be as high pressure as it'll get. I don't know how high pressure it is. I know that in heat mode, it gets to be 550 pounds, okay? I don't know what the highest is in refrigeration mode, if you will, in cool mode. I don't know how high, but it'll be as high as it gets, whatever it is. And it'll be real life high. In other words, really with refrigerant, not with nitrogen, but with actual refrigerant in there, and all the process is turning. You know, the compressor's turning, everything's moving. It's not just ambient nitrogen, but it's in fact full churning power. okay, of the system, however high it gets. And now you want to test your line sets. Test your 2 at the IDU connection to the line set. So your 2 at the IDU connection to the line set, and your 2 at the ODU connection to the line set, and then your 3 valves. So here, here, and here. You want to test everything with bubble leak tester, which of course you have the Better Bubble, the dauber, or you can get the Better Bubble, the spray. And you want to spray everything, make sure, and just like if you use the dauber, it gets everywhere, it holds fine. But if you use the spray, you should put your hand underneath it and spray it. That way it stays liquid underneath there. You could try putting a mirror, but that's kind of hokey doke. Just spray, have your hand underneath there so it goes through, and your hand's kind of holding the bottom liquidy. Okay, so just go like that and spray a bunch on there, and then it's fine. And again, spray everything and try to keep your hand there to where if it makes a bubble, it'll squish out between your fingers. Okay, if there's a bubble underneath, you can always see the bubbles on top. But if there's bubbles underneath running well, it'll try to squeeze out through your fingers. Okay, that's just another little trick. Just hold your fingers tight against the bottom everywhere you can see. So finger here, 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 all the way everywhere you can see the bottom. Just put your fingers there and hold it tight. And so if there's a leak underneath, it'll have to squish out between your fingers, and you'll see bubbles coming up. Okay. All right. So that was your final test. Once it's done, you're good to go. All right. You guys have any questions? Put them down below.